Welcome to the Restore Podcast. Welcome, guys, to the Restore Podcast. I'm here today with the legend, the one and only. There's only one of him in the world. It is Dan Richards. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, good. We're currently in the middle of Storm Dennis. I think it's Storm Dennis, isn't it?
I don't know who names them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, Dennis.
Who names it Dennis?
The menace, I suppose. Menace to the trees and people's cars, isn't it?
So listen, we're here today just to do a bit of a deep dive, mate. Not only onto your past, but your present. Find out a little bit about you, how you and me came to be involved in the first place, and then more so, really, just to find out how you're doing now and what you're up to now. Because actually, I really feel like it's more interesting what you're doing now than where you've come from. So, without further ado, Dan, just recall for us how we met, because it was the craziest of situations, was it not?
Yeah, we met on an app called Tinder.
You weren't meant to say that.
Grinder. No, sorry. All joking aside, we met one sunny Sunday afternoon back in 2009.
2009.
Yeah, May.
It was
31st of May 2009.
31st of May.
I got to our point on a motorcycle. And you
on a
joined,
Daytona Triumph.
Yeah, and you came in an helicopter. Yeah.
I know. I kind of trumped you on that one. Absolutely.
I was in a pretty bad motorcycle collision with the Central Reservation, and you came out with Hems, scooped me up, and sent me on my way to the Royal London at Whitechapel.
I did. So I met you. You're right. It was the Sunday afternoon, wasn't it? And I met you. You were actually fully conscious, I think, at the time, weren't you? And we gave you some horse tranquilizer.
I think I was, wasn't I? And
I gave you some.
But I was in and out.
ketamine.
Was I in and out?
You were certainly out when we gave you the horse tranquilizer.
Yeah.
And then we scooped you up, put you in the back of the helicopter, and flew you to the Royal London. And then that was that. And then I actually got a call 2 weeks later saying there's some crazy soldier up on the helipad who wants to see you. We advised him not to come up because he's still really ill, but he said he really wants to come. He's in a wheelchair, he can't quite walk, but he's like nails, and he wants to come see you. And I was like, oh, fair dues. And so that we were reunited about two and a half weeks later or so, wasn't it?
I mean, I've got a very, very sort of vague memory, if you like. Certainly I've got no memory of the accident, but there's only certain little bits that I remember from being in hospital. I mean, I remember obviously meeting you, but I mean, I can't remember what day of the week it was, or I just remember little bits.
Yeah,
bits. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think I was off my tits and all sorts of drugs. So
yeah, I can imagine.
Morphine and the remnants of ketamine.
Yeah.
How much do you give me?
Oh man! Oh, it was brilliant. It was
got
brilliant.
Any more?
So listen, for listeners, let's just really quickly, not to labour this point, but let's just quickly sort of run through because there was a massive injury load that day. One thing I do tell people, because we've actually got a bit of a history together, we've spoken at conferences together, we've spoken on another podcast together. You were probably one of the most injured patients I've ever been to that's made a full recovery. So just really quickly, run through with me what you injured that day.
So I came off my bike into the Central Reservation shoulder first. So I ripped my arm and shoulder off at this pretty much at the scene. Landed on my heels, which I had bilateral talus fractures, so 2 broken ankles. And then my left arm, I think the natural subconscious thing to do when you fall over is put your arms out. Obviously, one wasn't working, so I had just the left arm, and all the weight and momentum through that just, I suppose, smashed my radius, and all the 2 bones in my forearm were poking out as well. I think someone mentioned as well when I was in hospital, they were on about getting rid of that one because of how badly broken it was. So I've now got 2 plates in my arm which will never come out. And that's all I've done really. That was it. Yeah.
It's just a minor scratch, little scratch, little scratch to the right arm and left arm and everything else.
I think, do you know what, they spent 6.5 hours.
Wow.
Trying to reattach it, but I think as well as ripping it off and smashing the collarbone and the shoulder blade, as I severed my brachial plexus out, pretty much out of the spinal cord, and was there partial laceration to the internal jugular.
I think there was. I saw your neck. I saw your literally saw your trachea.
And I think due to the lack of blood supply to the limb itself, and the fact that even if they could reattach it, it would be paralysed, they decided to amputate it. But I mean, I say decided to amputate it. I think all they probably did was got the scissors out the kitchen drawer and
The chicken scissors.
The chicken
Get
scissors.
the chicken scissors. Where's the surgery? I don't know where the just get the chicken ones out. Just quickly, yeah.
We ain't got any. WH Smith's have got some. Yeah.
Oh mate, so listen, like what I loved about you when you were telling me about your rehabilitation, just is how quickly you were just you in the hierarchy of priorities. You were like, are the crown jewels there? All right, my arm's off. I've got no shoulder, but on my crown jewels intact.
That is one memory I've got. I remember vividly from hospital. As I remember the doctor came in. I'd not long been woken up out of the coma, like I think it was about 2 or 3 days after the incident itself, and the doctor came in, and gave me the good news. You've been in a horrific motorcycle accident and so on. And so you've got 2 broken ankles, and my left arm was actually suspended from a pole with fixators in it, holding the bones together. And I stopped him before he got to the right-hand side. I said, am I a vegetable? Is that it? My mum told me that he started to well up at that point, and then his registrar had to come in, the nurse, a lady, and she gave me the good news again, all through it, and then said, but unfortunately, after 6.5 hours of surgery, we were unable to save your arm and shoulder. And I remember looking over to the right side of the pillow of my body, and where certainly the shoulder or body should have been was the pillow. And I got a little bit upset about that. Obviously, anyone would. It's a massive shock to the system. I was 23 years old. I was quite young. And then I remember looking around the room. Everyone was miserable, and quite understandably. And then I went, verbatim, is the plumbing still there and working? And she said, that's absolutely fine. Nothing else matters, does it? I mean, there's people worse off than me.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's been my attitude. Well, from then straight, and it's good in a way because it enabled me the mental capacity, if you like, to focus on readjusting to this new way of life. And I certainly put a lot of that down to being in the military. I mean, you kind of drilled into about being self-reliant, and I think the phrase that's used a lot in the military is adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
So that's what I did really, and so very early on I started learning to write again, and just all sorts. It was quite difficult because obviously my left hand was in a cast at this point, so I became very dexterous with all sorts. But it's a very frustrating way to sort of learn, because I was right hand dominant. So the only time I'd ever use my left hand was to hold a knife and fork or something when I'm eating, and I just I had to accept the fact really that I'm now going to be a man with one arm. I'm going to be an amputee the rest of my life. And yeah, I suppose looking back on that moment now of asking if the plumbing's still there and working, and looking back on that moment now, that's the moment I accepted my situation, which then afforded me the mental capacity to adapt and overcome, really. So
mate. When you put it like that, I mean, I've been having a bad day today. My hair's been all over the place. The wind has been blowing, and Dan comes out. I feel like an upside down sheep today. When you get in, I got into the studio. I was like, things are just running late.
It's exactly the same. That's exactly the same, Owen. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I'm like, you put my problems in perspective with your problems. What you've been through. It just puts everything else into perspective.
Do you know what though? And I say this a lot. I get this a lot when I go to talks and when I do talks and so on, and when I finish, people go, "Oh, do you know what? Like, I've had a bad day, or I've had this has happened to me, but it's nothing to what you've had to deal with. My problems are no bigger or better than anybody else's. Everyone's got their Everest, haven't they? This is mine, and you've got yours. Whether you shut your fingers in the door or you you cut your finger, chopping onions or something. Do you know what I mean? It's my problems really are no bigger or better or any worse than anybody else's.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a matter of perspective, I think.
100%, Dan. 100%. So let's just move forward through your rehabilitation, because actually it was a bit of a rocky road, but you got through after I met you.
Yeah.
Knowing you and knowing your story, just illustrate to us, because I think you sometimes have to go down before you come up, and I think it was certainly in my life I've had to do that in certain circumstances. But just describe to us, because so you went down, and it was quite you hit rock bottom at one point, I guess.
Yeah.
Discharged.
Well,
from the military.
it's a bit of a excuse me. It was a bit of a do you know what, I went back to the military, and I kind of relearned to do everything left-handed. And I was given the option, if you want to leave, we completely understand. I was like, no, the army is all I want to do as a boy. It's all I've known from 8 years old up until I was 23 at the time. So that's all I've known. I don't want to do anything else. This is all I wanted to do. And so I worked with horses, and I relearned to ride a horse. I had to go rock climbing and did pretty well at that. Discovered a little bit of adaptive sports. That played more of a part later on in life, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. But and I thought, well, you know what? I remember I was halfway up a rock face in Spain as a lead climber of an expedition, and I thought, you know what? If I can adjust like this, I've got nothing to worry about. This is. There are people worse off than me. I ain't got cancer. I don't live in poverty. I ain't got a terminal illness, or anything like that. I was like, if I can readapt the way I have in such a short amount of time, I've really got nothing to worry about. I wanted to become a farrier. I found out pretty quickly that was never going to happen for me. So it was all about, well, I can't do that. What can I do? And so that's what it came. And I stayed in the military for 3 years. Excuse me. I stayed in the military for 3 years, and I was told then, sort of by the end of that 3 years, that you're going to be medically discharged. And that was it. And I went through that part of coming out of the military and stuff and whatnot, and I spent a lot of time trying to find stuff that I could do. I mean, that safety net's been taken away from me, and rather than dwell on it, you kind of put yourself out there to do whatever you want. I had no trade coming out of the military, so I had nothing to fall back on, if you like. So I just did courses and stuff, and to try and better myself academically. I think I did a maths, a literature, and adult numeracy. Just to sort of better my CV, if you like. So when I did come out of the military, completely, I could hit the ground running as best as possible.
Yeah.
And so I came out of the military in the October of 2012, and I'd been in the army at this point for 10 years.
So that's all you'd known to that
that's
point.
That's all I'd known from...
It's a really interesting point, Dan. I know I'm going to let you continue in a sec, but I just wanted to, absolutely. So I fundamentally agree with what you're saying. And what you're saying is, whether change is enforced upon you or whether you choose it, the underlying tenet is you have to be flexible and, and learn how to pivot in different directions and grow in different directions. And one of the things I remember you saying, we'll come back to this a bit later in the conversation, but is when your dad came, because your dad was in the military as well, am I right in thinking? Was your dad in the military?
Yeah.
And when you were a boy, you said, that's actually what I want to do. I want to do what my dad did, and then actually, fast forward 25 years.
8 years old.
Yeah, 8 years old.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Dad went out to work in his uniform, and I turned around and I said, Mum, when I'm old enough, I'm going to join the army and be like Dad.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is, you said to me last time we spoke, is then only the next time you felt that powerful and that strong about something was when you found your now career in presenting and in modelling and show business, and that was only the second time you've had that revelation. But that it goes to show that how you can be flexible, you can refine yourself in absolutely new lines of work which still align with what you're passionate about. And it's something that you would have never probably found you had you remained on that trajectory.
Mad, isn't it? Yeah,
it's crazy to think.
It's so weird. Not like weird in a good way. Like, it's profound, if you like. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of lost now on the trajectory of the story now. But
sorry.
Yeah,
so Kerry, so you've left the military.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I then went back home, and after 10 years, I was like, I'm gonna have some time to myself to unwind. I've lived at 100 miles an hour, for a lengthy period of time. I've done all I've ever wanted to do as a boy. I've done that. I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna have a little time to myself to unwind. I think I gave myself a month. I got bored after 2 weeks. So I need to find a job. I need to find something to do, and that's really when my decline downhill really started. That year, the best part of a year became the worst year of my life, and I began the monotonous process, if you like, of trying to find a job. But anyone that's been in the military, regardless of how successful they are now, or if they are still in, the worst thing, or the hardest thing that anyone will tell you is trying to sell themselves. They're not. No one. If you look at the military as 100%, I reckon 1% have got the gift of the gab of selling themselves. I didn't have that. I didn't think I had anyway. But that year became 327 job applications.
Wow.
Of which not one led to anything sub-basic, like, and not even a networking event, not a nothing, no interviews, nothing at all. Running parallel with that, I was living on every penny I'd ever saved up. And the wonderful thing with the military is you don't really pay bills, so it's the perfect opportunity to save money. And for me, that money was money into a business, a farrier, which I wasn't going to be, a house, deposit on a house, and it became my what I was funding my life with, and I wasn't living above my means or anything, and it ran out eventually. It was August in 2013. I had to re-tax and reinsure my car. I went to pay for it online, and my card declined. I remember looking at my online bank, and I had 15 pence to my name.
15 pence.
That was it, like 15 pence. And I was like, this is what I've got to show for everything I've done. And what I didn't know, but everyone else could see, was the fact that I was depressed and massively reclusive. And I weighed everything up. Excuse me. I weighed everything up. I got out of the shower one morning, and Mum and Dad had gone out to work, and I saw myself in the mirror, and I looked really like unkept, withdrawn, no colour or anything, and I was like, what have I really got to look forward to? Like, I've got no job, I've got no money, I can't get a job no matter how hard I try. I live at home with Mum and Dad. I'm 27 years old at the time. 27 years old, and I'm living in my old room essentially like a 16-year-old child. Most people my age at 27 are getting pretty well, set up in their careers, probably settling down, starting their own families. And here I am, just a drain on society. And if this is what life's got in store for me after what I've been through and how I've dealt with it, and after the military and the experience that I've built up for myself, I'd really rather not be part of it. I've been through enough, and I've done it all with a smile on my face, and I've done it all willingly off of my own back. I don't think I could take any more. And I tried to hang myself. I went into Mum's room, got her dressing gown belt, went back into my room, shut the door, tied one end around my headboard, one around my neck, and I just sat on the floor.
Wow.
And I got halfway. I measured it out and everything, so that when it was round my neck, my bum wasn't touching the floor. Yeah. So it was literally my own weight. I planned it out that well, if you like. And I got halfway through doing it, and I was like, "What's my mum going to do when she finds me?
What's your mum going to do? Yeah.
What's she going to say?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't bear the thought of my mum finding me, and I was like, I need help,
Yeah.
because this is not normal.
Yeah.
And I never told mum how bad it got
Yeah.
until about 4 years ago. I said I need help, and the next goal I ever set was I need to get back to London. That's what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so that was, it'll be 8 years this year.
Oh,
8 years this year that I've rebuilt my life from scratch. And my first job out of the military after that year, sorry, excuse me, was I got offered a job as a chauffeur, and I mean, without going too much into that, I was driving like the rich and the famous around, and I was embedded into the Royal Mews at one point. Like, I hired help for the palaces, and I was living at the time in a caravan, in a little village outside Windsor. The only luxury of that caravan was the fact that it was plumbed. I could flush the toilet, run the taps, and not sit on top of a cesspit, essentially. In the winter, it was awful. In the winter, I'd go to bed in clothing, my old army sleeping bag, and my duvet over me. And it got that cold because I couldn't turn the fire on because it was connected to a gas canister, and they ain't cheap.
No.
That was how I was living. I was driving these very successful people around, and I was living a completely million miles
away from that reality.
But I had a moment, I don't know where it came from, and I was like, what gives these people their get up and go? I'm in these people's personal space, these very rich, very wealthy, very successful people, celebrities, as well. And what makes these people get up and go? What gives them their tip? Because they are just normal people. Like, some have got a very, very different job to me, and some of them have done very well out of life. But they're just normal people. What gives them their get up and go? And so I just became a sponge. I just started to draw off of them, like, notice things in their personal habits, what they do. I started to copy, mimic, and so on. And I said, you know what? Any opportunity I get now, I don't care what it is, I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take it, and I'm going to run with it. I don't care where it leads to. I'm just going to do it. And in the space of the 3 years I did that job, I qualified as a scuba diver, in Egypt, and with a really cool charity called Depth Therapy, and I learned to fly a plane. I didn't get my license. I learned to fly a plane. I then gave wing walking a go, and then 2015 came along, and an opportunity arose to become part of a 4-man crew to row the Atlantic Ocean. And I just threw myself into it. I knew nothing about rowing a boat. I mean, I've got half the power, one arm. But the challenge was, it was the world's first all-disabled crew to row unsupported 3,000 miles from the Canary Islands to Antigua. And I think there must have been like 30, 35 of us that turned up for selection. And I just stuck with it. I just went to all the training bits and so on. I was training outside of work as well, and rowing for two hours.
Mate, it must have been fit as a fiddle, to be fair, mate. But at this time, had you taken up cycling already by this time? No, this is pre-cycling.
This came after.
Oh, right, okay.
Before, this is what led me into cycling. But
okay.
I made it to the final 5 of that selection, which 4 got chosen, so I was number 5. And it's became my greatest achievement. Regardless of whatever I achieve now or before, that road selection is still my greatest achievement, because I learned more about myself during that year than I've ever done, certainly in the 10 years I was in the military and at the time, the 6 years I was out. And it was that there's no shame in giving up, and nobody should ever be made to feel ashamed for giving up. But running parallel with that, there's no success in it either. And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to win the gold medal or whatever it is to consider that a success. There's so many different forms of success, and when I got told I hadn't been selected, I mean, anyone else would have gone, oh, that's such a shame, and that's why did I even bother for? And I thought, no, I need something else. I need something else to focus on. And
Dan, so listen, just to pause, hit the pause button there. So I completely agree. I think you can learn from every situation.
Yeah,
and actually, you can still, just because you don't win, or you don't achieve the goal, you can still learn. I'm still learning. So this is the filter and the perspective which exactly I share. It's like, what can I get from this situation? It feels shit. I feel rejected. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like an upside down sheep. But what can I learn from this? Because there's something to learn in every situation. And to come back to your earlier point around, your suicide attempt and then coming away from that. One of the things I learned about myself, because I've struggled before with depression, I've struggled with feelings of anxiety and so on and so forth. What I realised is my proclivity and need for community. And I think probably what you are saying as well is, not only did the rowing give you focus and goal setting, it probably also gave you community. And actually, as did the cycling, which I know you're just about to talk about. One thing I realised really is my fundamental need for community. And actually, primarily suicide is a disease of social isolation.
Yeah.
So people never, as paramedic, I've never seen people attempting or succeeding in suicide whilst there's others around. They always do it in isolation. So if you can break that cycle of isolation, then actually not only does it give you access to community and to a body of people that bring you outside of yourself. Because one thing depression is, and I've found this, is it's very introverted, it's very self-orientated. But if you can be around a community of people, for better or worse, they bring you out of yourself.
Yeah.
And also goal setting. So it's something that you were just saying about, actually, this is the goal. I'm going to get out of bed every morning at 5 in the flipping morning, or whatever, just to make this happen. But it's something worth getting out of bed for.
Yeah.
And not only did that's transposed from your rowing to your cycling to every other facet in life, is setting a goal. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you work very well with goals ahead of you, because if you've got a target to aim for,
it's like goal. I never knew very early on. I mean, the first goal I ever set post injury was whilst I was cooped up in hospital, after we met and whatnot. In fact, it was before we met, was to win back my independence. And that came from, because I was on so much morphine, and this is going to get very
you're off
graphic
your tits
now, off my tits. But one thing I found out morphine does is it really relaxes your
bowels.
I hadn't passed anything for 2 weeks, which was a concern. So I had all the bells and whistles, and they gave me they gave me something,
a laxative,
an enema.
Yeah.
They gave me an enemy, and then wheeled me into the toilet on a commode, like at some carnival float, into the toilet. And then they said, Dan, when you're done, pull the orange cord and someone will come and clear you up, tie you up. And I went, no, I'm not. No. I it's not about this is your job and stuff, and I'm a patient. It's not about that. It's not about me being too proud or anything. It was that for me. If I can't wipe my own ass, even though I've got the ability to do so, then I need to be having a word with myself. That was my goal. How I looked at it.
Your aim, your
short-term
aim. Yeah.
I spent an hour and a half in that bathroom. Yeah, with my broken arm in a cast.
Wow.
Wiping my own ass, basically.
Yeah.
And I went, I need my independence back. And that's why, when I said, looking back, when I said that the plumbing's still working and attached, that mindset afforded me the mental capacity and the freedom to be able to go, right, I don't need to worry about what's gone, because I've accepted that, what's happened. It's now given me the clean sheet, if you like, to find things that I did without thinking about with my right hand to do with my left. So anything from feeding myself, writing my name, even tying my laces became something for later on. But
But these are all short-term goals, like you said, that you actually no, actually, the next thing in front of me is learning to wipe my own arse. The next thing beyond that is learning to write with my non-dominant hand.
Yeah.
The next thing might be tying shoelaces. No, but you're right, they're all short-term goals that actually rebuilt you as a person, rebuilt you as in your character. Because so let's fast forward. So did you? What happened to the rowing? Did you make the team? Did you not make the team?
I didn't make the team. I got to the final 5, of which 4 were. I actually did the final part of selection. I rowed with 3 of the selected 4 crew. That's how close it got. Yeah. And I actually, do you know what? I wasn't arrogant, but part of me was thinking, "You've got this. You've got this. You definitely got this." And do you know what? I didn't have it, but I think even though I was that, arrogant's the wrong word, but even though I was that driven to go, I've got this, and then to be told I hadn't got it, when I put the phone down, part of me was a little bit, oh, this is shit. But the rest of me was like, you're the only person with one arm to turn up to selection and do it. I googled this. You're the only person with one arm without the use of a prosthetic to ever attempt it. And I was like, do you know what? I'll be the first then. And that was it. And I thought, I tore my hands to shreds on the indoor ergo rowing machines because the gym didn't have any adaptions, and those plastic molded handles on the indoor rowers are joined together at the factory, and it's a great big line of plastic. And I tore my hands to shreds. I was going to work with plasters on my hands and stuff, and I was rowing non-stop for 2 hours, 3 to 4 times a week, as well as doing the selection and having a job as well, doing the chauffeuring work. I thought, do you know what? If I can do that, what else can I do?
What else can you do? Yeah, exactly.
And that's when I went, I need something else to focus on. I've got a bike.
Yeah.
I started riding then, start cycling, and
did you join the because you pivoted to biking, and again I think a community of people around you was powerful at that time because you probably aligned yourself. Not only do you align yourself with, because there's a real point here that I want to stress. Yeah. You aligned yourself with people who are top of their game, who are in a boat, to then going to a cycling club with people that were pushing you.
I wasn't even a
yourself.
Cycling club.
Was it not initially?
It's off my own back. Literally, I had an indoor trainer, and I was just YouTubing videos. Yeah. Indoor training videos and nutrition and stuff and whatnot. I'd actually been taken away to learn to ski by a charity called supporting wounded veterans. Yeah. And Blesma, a charity called Blesma, and actually Blesma was a charity that this is the British Limitless Ex-Servicemen Association, had introduced me to the world of adaptive sports, skiing being one of them. And the Supporting Wounded Veterans charity, who took me away skiing for the first time, I thought it'd be nice to give something back, as a thanks for taking me on this free skiing holiday. And so this London Night Rider of 2016, I think it was. Yeah. 2016, I thought, well, I just trained for that. I'd also been given a spot on another charity's ride called Help for Heroes to cycle across France. And I thought, well, I'll just do both. That's my introduction to cycling there. And so I just trained. I just threw myself into cycling, the nutrition side of it, the training side of it, and I just became a man on a mission, if you like. And I thought it was brilliant. I've got this London Night Rider, me being me, my first ride ever outside in the elements around London happened to be a payday weekend. It's the first time I'd been out on the roads, clipped in, and I did it. But what I hadn't planned on was the fact that the morning that Night Rider finishes, it's the same morning I had to be on the train to go to France to start what became nearly 400 miles across northern France on the Monday.
So your arse was probably in bits by the time.
A little bit, yeah. And I did it, and do you know what? That lesson that I learned from the row, the whole "there's no shame in giving up, no one should be made to feel ashamed for giving up," that really came into its own whilst I was in France. I mean, if anyone ever tells you France is flat, they're lying, right?
Through their teeth.
Through their
French teeth.
Yeah. every hill that I came to, I mean, being a one-arm cyclist, I can't stand up and cycle. So I'm in the saddle
all the time,
whether it's an hour or 12 hours.
Mate.
You know, that's
I'm
it.
out of the cycle out the saddle just in London, and London's got no hills, so I can imagine how hard that must have been.
And I thought, do you know what? I can get off and walk up this hill if I want to, but really, what have I actually achieved? Nothing.
Yeah.
You know, there's a nice view at the top, but I wouldn't have earned it.
Yeah.
And that's, even now, I take that approach into cycling now, and this is like 4 years later down the line, but the sense of achievement I got out of, certainly the ride across France, the sense of achievement I got out of that, I went, do you know what? Cycling's going to be my thing. I'm going to do cycling. And I said, what can I do in cycling? What goals can I do in cycling? And the Invictus Games was good fun. And I missed the encatchment deadline for Toronto, which was 2017. I thought, right, Invictus Games 2018, let's go. And that's when I threw myself into the nutrition side of it and the training side of it. And I just, for 2 years, that became a goal. Just going back to being in hospital with the whole winning my independence back, any goal that I've ever set, and I tell this to anyone as well, any goal you ever want to set, regardless of what it is, break it down into small goals.
Yes.
It
That's
makes the
key.
bigger one. That's the key. I
100%.
mean, if you're going to set a goal for running a marathon and you've never run for the bus, you're not going to run 26.2 miles, are you? Or whatever
like
it
you
is.
said, break it down into its micro tasks. Break it down into its. Another thing I think you did as well, Dan. Although it came organically from yourself, you put yourself around people. Although you were pretty much the hardest worker in the room, you put yourself around people that pushed you forward. It sounds like in the rowing and the cycling, people that actually challenged you and caused you to grow. Because it sounds like what you're very good at is putting yourself around people that actually force you to change, adapt, and overcome because they are skilled within their trade. So actually, what I generally find is actually if your closest people to you will have influence on you whether you like it or not. Your 5 closest friends, they will have subconscious and conscious influence on you. But it's also within competition, they will also have influence on you. So actually, if you are the weakest member of the team, it will force you to the plate because you'll start to adapt, grow. You'll see their nutrition, you'll see their skill, you'll see their ability to microtask, like you said, because you have to break it down, and the incremental gains they're making. And one thing I really admire about you is not only have you refound yourself, you've become the hardest worker in the room by putting yourself in a place of weakness amongst people that are better than you, and you've adapted and become as good as, if not better. So you're in the Invictus. So did you get to the Invictus Games 2018?
I did the Invictus Games.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Yeah, do you know what? It was whilst this is how I got into modelling as well, through cycling. I was using Instagram as a means just to track my cycling performance, and I thought, do you know what? Someone sees a one-arm man cycling, somebody's going to get something out of that, and I wasn't doing it for validation or anything. It was like, if I could help somebody else get themselves out of a situation, then do you know what? It's selfless, isn't it, in a way? And I was using Instagram to track my cycling progress, if you like. And it's my agent now, saw it, approached me, sent me a message, which I thought was a bit of a con. I thought it was a scam. There's some chance I want to make some money out of offer you a photograph shoot, pay for it, and you'll never see the photographs or your money ever again. So I put it off for a month, and there was a bit of, to and fro in. And in the end, I thought, do you know what? I said in that car one day that any opportunity I get, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And I, regardless of what it is. And I thought, do you know what? I'll go and see him. I actually went to my test shoot. I was hungover, right? I've still got the picture on my phone. And I did the shoot. They offered me a contract. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? Really?
Was this the one in your boxer shorts, or was that later one?
That's a later one. There's a story behind that picture as well. Which
I bet there is, yeah.
And my first job was a Lloyds Bank and mental health awareness campaign.
I remember seeing you. I was I'm on the sofa, just relaxing. I'm knackered. It's whatever. Come home from work.
Yeah.
And then there's like these black. There's these. Is it the Black Horses? Or was that Barclays Bank? I can't remember.
No,
That's
Lloyds is the horse.
The
Yeah.
horses. There's horses. There's horses. Then there's you on the TV. I'm like, oh my.
Yeah. So I fronted the advert. My first job as a signed model. I didn't realise the ramifications of that, of like just how big that was. It's a TV commercial. I knew nothing about certainly the media industry at the time. I just enjoyed watching it, and that led to a meeting with a television production company who'd seen the advert. We want to meet Dan, which became Naked Beach.
Naked Beach.
4.
Naked Beach. So what? So listen. So Naked Beach. That's been as. So I've never actually seen this show. I've actually seen pictures like that you've sent me through, legit pictures. So do you think was that a pivotal role as well? Was that something that really?
Do you know what? Doing that was. I think I was a week and a half into filming, so we spent a month in Greece filming that on a little island called Mykonos.
So for people that haven't seen Naked, what is Naked Beach?
So Naked Beach is a social experiment, if you like. The brainchild to it some research was conducted by a social psychologist called Dr. Keon West, who through various experiments, if you like, found that people with a low opinion of themselves, and it came into 3 categories of self-esteem, life satisfaction, and body confidence, being around an array of air quotes normal bodies, as opposed to the airbrushed, perfect, if you like, images which we kind of belt fed down our throats, if you like, through various media outlets. Being around an array of different bodies, it allows them to lower their barriers and be able to accept themselves for who they are.
So it's kind of a bit of a social experiment. Yeah.
And so I was one of the hosts. I was one of the body confidence hosts.
Awesome. One of how many hosts?
8.
8 hosts. Awesome.
And we do you know what? Without giving too much away, we changed 15 people's lives.
Wow.
5 episodes, 3 people,
Damn.
3 guests. And I was a week and a half to filming. It was a busy filming schedule.
Yeah.
And I turned around to Ben Witt, one of the other hosts. In fact, Ben Witt and Felicity Hayward, and the 2 of the other hosts. And I said, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do.
The second time only in your life, you figured out what you want to do.
I'd been out of the military. I remember just sitting there before I came out with it. I just went, how the hell have I ended up here?
Yeah.
How the hell have I managed this?
How I ended up naked on a beach, just with some absolute legends of people.
There was obviously Naked Beach called Naked Beach. The last part of each episode is Naked Beach. It's a private beach.
Yeah.
But apart from that one part of the show, we're covered in quite elaborately designed body paint.
Yeah.
And I wore a thong for a month. I tell you what, they're quite comfortable. Yeah.
Please tell me you haven't got a thong on right now.
I haven't got a thong on right now.
Oh, damn it.
I was glad to give it back. Or not give it back, throw it in the bin when I was finished. But,
I can imagine.
But yeah. But
I can imagine. But so there was that. There was almost that confirmation within inside yourself that actually, gosh, this is what I want to do. This is something I want to pursue.
It's quite a surreal feeling.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I was 8 years old, but the first time I ever had that feeling.
I can imagine.
And you're not really emotionally sort of mature enough
connected,
to understand what that feels like. You just know, any child, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a vet, I want to be a doctor, blah, blah. The list is endless. I wanted to be like my dad.
Yeah.
But I think as an adult, man, that moment, it's very like everything becomes clear.
You have a sense of clarity. I've had the same in the past.
Yeah.
For a split second, and you acknowledge where you are, but you also at least see at least 5 years into the future. You think, okay, But again, get back to goal setting. Okay, fine. I've got my goal. I've got my
Yeah.
aim. And what that aligns in you is this. Okay, how do I get to the next level of this?
I'll tell you what. Christ alive! I went, right. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
How the hell am I going to do this?
Yeah.
I know nothing about the media. I know nothing about doing it.
Yeah.
Most people, that get into modelling, certainly modelling, are a lot younger than me. I've come into it quite late, but certainly, like, I mean, the end goal for me is I want to be a TV presenter, right? And it's not about whether that happens or not. I'm not interested in whether that happens or not. I'm not associating with that, and there's no plan B for me. Like, plan B's a load of shit, to be honest. Like, because if you set plan B, I read this in a book somewhere. Plan B means that you're willing to accept less.
You're willing to accept a failure of plan A.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And modelling as well. I think I want to be I just want to be a successful model. I want to be like a disabled supermodel.
Yeah. Well, why not, Dan? Why
not?
The hell not?
Why not?
Why not? Is there any others in the? Are there any other disabled supermodels in
there is certainly in America.
Yeah. There's everything in America.
Yeah.
So with that path, so the stars align. You're sat there or stood there on on this show. You're talking to your co-host. You've already got a modelling career which is starting to take off.
Yeah.
What were your next steps after that, or what has been your next steps after that? What started to happen?
When I got back from filming, when we wrapped on Naked Beach, I was made redundant from my full-time job at the time.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Being made redundant, regardless of the situation you're in, is always going to be a bit toilet in it. It's a bit shit.
Yeah, indeed.
I saw it as an opportunity. I went, I'm going to take this opportunity.
Yes.
I'm going to take the year off. I'm going to give myself a year, because a year is a decent amount of time. And I'm just going to jump in, both feet first, into this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to... Naked Beach, if anything, gave me a platform. And I decided I'm going to take the year off away from a full-time job and commitment. So I worked in a coffee shop for a year at weekends. It just allowed me the freedom to just whenever castings came down, or I got cast for a job or anything, I could just down tools and go. And I did that for a year, and a lot of the work I was doing was free. There was it was not lucrative at all. But I think if you're willing to put yourself out there for something, then you're definitely barking up the right tree. And I did a fashion show yesterday, as part of London Fashion Week, which is all about sustainable fashion, raising awareness to the homeless and so on. And I got back and I told my girlfriend, who sat in the room here, I went, I'm definitely barking up the right tree. I love that so much. It
brings out the best in you.
Yeah. And it really does. It's like a drug, but better. I don't know much about drugs, to be honest, but only the ones that you gave me.
Oh, well, listen, they were free of charge. Free on the NHS.
No ramifications for not paying someone off.
Yeah, exactly.
But I loved it, and I got back from there. And they've been. Do you know what? We're sat here and I'm talking about all the positives. I've had days where I've gone, "What am I doing this for? Like, is it all really worth it?" And
when the work's not consistent, it's not coming in consistently.
I mean, everyone sees the pictures on Instagram and magazines and stuff, and that's the glitzy part of it. That's what you see, and I'm a victim of this. I've gone, one day that'll be me. But when is that one day going to happen? Yeah. So I get days where I lose that focus, motivation and focus, and then it's like things where
one day it all comes back to you when you get back to work.
You know what? I love it. This is why I do it. And, and I've got a platform to represent. Certainly a certain demographic of people, but
definitely, Dan, definitely. So listen, a couple of things there really is not only do you get the confirmation and affirmation, I think, when you do it, It's what, and you're right. The goal setting has occurred because you've actually articulated quite nicely that you want to project yourself into this sort of presenter role. Have you made any inroads into doing present? Because so that a lot of modelling work has occurred in amongst that year. Have you done much presenting in that year, or have you?
I haven't. It's mainly all been shoots and stills, and I think, do you know what? You need to open a door to see all the others that are there, and I think it's all well and good, me saying that's what I want to do, and I'm pretty sure if I stick at it, eventually I'm going to be led to somewhere where this might be a thing. So Naked Beach was my first time at being in front of a camera and then being transmitted into people's living rooms and stuff.
Absolutely.
We was on Gogglebox.
Yeah,
cool. We was on Gogglebox. Yeah, I love that.
Listen, claim to fame, absolute claim to fame. Absolutely.
But I remember just sort of being there and just soaking it all in. I literally soaked the whole experience in.
Yeah.
And it just sort of
brought you to life.
Reinforced everything. Like, this is definitely what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, me and you've just spoken just off air before we started this conversation and recording about maybe starting a podcast, because I actually think some of the doors are opened for you and you walk through them. Other doors you open yourself, and other doors you literally, or you don't even open. You just take a sledgehammer or a shotgun and you blow the crap out of the lock, and you open it yourself. So I think there's definitely facets of seizing opportunities and then creating opportunities for yourself. And I've certainly found that podcasting has been my lease of life, because it unlocks really interesting conversations with other people, which conversely helps me because I get to see and interview some really fascinating people and their perspectives. One of the big things about you, Dan, which I love, and I've had to do this myself, but I think I've had to do a micro dose of what you've had to do, which is adapt and overcome. Yeah. Adapt and overcome some really shit circumstances, but absolutely adapt and overcome, because change is enforced upon you. You don't always embrace change, but it's not that's not what defines you. What defines you is how you overcome and how you adapt to that change. I think we've just got a text message from how you adapt and overcome to that change, and so it really is. That's just absolutely my story as well, but just in a micro sense of your story. But so
I think that just goes back to. Do you know what I think? My problems, I said earlier, my problems are no bigger or better or worse than yours that you're talking about now, or anybody else's. I think, in fact, I don't think, I know, we're not defined by what happens to us. It's how we deal with it, which says a lot about you as a person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you have to go through the shitstorm and come out the other end to really appreciate who you are as a person.
It's a journey of self-discovery.
Because you can sit and you can sit around and stand around and whatever and just preach all this good news stuff and this is what you must do to live a really good life, and it's like, are you practicing what you preach? Yeah. Or you just, do you know what I mean? It's and I've seen a few things where it's all done for show. Sometimes I'm not saying for 1 minute that anyone is a charlatan or anything, but I've been on the receiving end of advice, and then I've seen the same people really like, well, a minute ago you were just saying this, and why aren't you employing it?
Why aren't you doing it? Yeah. Why aren't you walking the walk? I mean, the same as being as paramedic for 20 years, Dan, installing the sense of order from chaos in a lot of situations, but actually having to really see where you're intervening in people's lives where they're completely falling apart. I mean, when I came to you, Dan, it was literally probably one of the worst moments of your life, if not the worst moment of your life, But coming from that, rarely have I ever been aligned with someone like yourself, where I've seen your journey since, because I've been to over 20 years, thousands and thousands of patients, but never followed them up and then seen their journey through this. And actually, it does me good to sort of see you and to see how you've made a success of things and how it's changed your character. But I absolutely agree with you about walking the walk and not just talking the talk, because even as a paramedic, how many times have I seen fellow colleagues fall apart that don't practice good self-care, that don't talk to a counsellor actually when they need to.
Absolutely important. Self-care is not selfish.
It's really not. 100%. You know, your ability to sleep properly. One of the things I find about relaxing is it doesn't come easily to people. It doesn't come easily to people like me. It's a real skill to relax and to really disconnect and to find something you love. And looking at the horizon of your life, because I think a lot of people lose focus on the horizon in the day-to-day malaise of things. But actually, making sure that you're still getting out of bed for the right thing, because you're still aligned to the right thing, and so, you know, showing up as a paramedic for the last 20 years and, you know, distilling a sense of order from chaos in people's lives. You know, as a critical care paramedic, you know, people are dying or dead literally around me, and it's not just me, it's together me and a team. But it really, what it's done for me, it's really re-emphasized, you know, it's not at those moments where your character is defined. It's all the moments that in between that I don't see. It's the good decisions where that other people don't see on a Monday morning or Tuesday morning. It's life is made up of consistently, despite however you're feeling, making good decisions in moment by moment. And you're right, it's not about talking good decisions, it's about walking those good micro decisions. So from diet to mental state, massive. The mental state's massive. To what makes me relax.
I think. Do you know what? That's a good point. Actually, you say mental state. I think there's all these different healths, isn't there? There's physical health and so on. I think mental health is the most important thing ever. Without mental health, you've got nothing. 100%. Without mental stability, you've got nothing.
100%.
You know, you need to be fit upstairs for everything else to be able to fall into place. I mean, I go back, you know, all them years ago, and I tried to end it all. You know, obviously I was not in a very healthy mental state, because nobody, you know, that's in their right frame of mind will willingly want to end their own life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Agreed.
And I'm, you know, I'm very lucky in that I was able to identify. You know, I never got help for it. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm better than anyone else at all. But I think, do you know what? I think, do you know what? What English is that? Because I was able to identify what the problem was, I was able to
correct it.
Yeah. Self-help, like you say, self-help.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. It's taken me, you know, 7-8 years to get to where I am now. But I'm glad for those 7 to 8 years, because I've got to find out who Dan Richards is.
It's 100%.
And yeah, definitely.
But one thing I will say, Dan, is that the amount of people I see, healthcare professionals and otherwise, that don't orchestrate self-care, that don't just look after they don't look after themselves, and especially the people that are in the caring industry, that actually do need to be looking after themselves, because you can't look after other people if you can't look after yourself. But you're right, being kind to yourself and learning how to forgive yourself, come to terms with your failures. One of the biggest things I've learned over the past few years is accepting failure. And it sounds...
It's the most humblest thing you can do as a person.
I know. Yeah. And it sounds really simple, but actually how fundamental and revelationary is... That's not even a word, revelationary.
It is now.
It is now. Yeah. Just made it up. How revelational... That's not even a word either.
It is now. There we go.
It is now. Is coming to terms with your finite failures. You know, with literally, you know, not making the cut. Either that, or actually just not being able to save a person's life. You know, not being enough. But actually, I was never going to be enough. The situation never mandated that I was going to be there in time, or that the team was going to be there in time. But being able to come to terms with failure, and like self-acceptance and self-care, And I think it's the primary mandate of this podcast. Really, is just orchestrating self-care and learning
it's so
how
important.
to. Yeah.
Self-care is definitely. Do you know what I think self-care is one of the most positively. Excuse me. Sorry. I think self-care is one of the most positively influential things that you can do to yourself as a person. It's, you know, people that might be, you know, anyone that's on sort of on a journey, you know, coming out of their rock bottom. You say, yeah, you got to be kind to. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
You need to speak to yourself.
Break it down.
Like you're speaking to your best mate, you know, like speaking to your parents or something, you know. Like when I'm out cycling, I train in Richmond Park mostly. I get to a hill and I'm like, come on, mate, you can do this. Yes, you got this. Let's go. Keep going. And it's like, do you know, it's not. I mean, I'm not gonna be Bradley Wiggins going up the hill or Mark Cavendish or anything, but it gives me a little bit of like how you would speak to somebody else that's struggling, whether you're running, cycling, walking, the shopping. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's one thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Carrying the shop into the car or something.
Exactly. One of the things I think we do in adult life quite poorly is talk to ourselves. So we listen. So when you're a kid, you know, you talk to yourself all the time, maybe when you're playing, whatever else. But actually, what in adult life, it seems to be a succinct lack of talking to yourself, and you start to listen to your negative self rather than talk positively to yourself. So I'm a big believer in that, because we all have this negative proclivity to listen to our negative selves, whereas actually you're right, change the game. Just start to talk words of affirmation over yourself. Come on, you can make this hill, you can do this, you can get out of bed, you can do this. I have to do the same and start talking to myself rather than listening to my negative self. So Dan Richards,
yes.
Apart from setting up a podcast, which I'm gonna make you do, and pimping you on YouTube and podcasts and everything else, what has Dan Richards got going on either right now or in the future? Well,
at the moment, I am one of 8 cyclists, part of a whole team of support crew as well. In June, I'm going to take part in the Race Across America.
Yes.
With Blesma.
A nice little small challenge, you know, just America. Just cycle across America.
What's good about this? So it's billed as the world's toughest bicycle ride.
I love it.
It's 3,080 miles from California to Annapolis in Maryland. What's good about this team is that every single member is made up of members of the British Limitless Ex-Servicemen's Association.
Wow.
So, you know, I said earlier, you know, it's a charity that gave me an introduction to adaptive sports. They've been such a huge help to me in the past, and I'm using it as a it's a tick in the box, a bucket list tick for me, but it's also an opportunity for me to really give something back. I'm don't have to, but I've set up a page to raise some money for it. You know,
where is that page?
It's Just Giving.
Just Giving. Dan Richards.
No, Just Giving forwards. Is it the One Arm Wonder?
With the One Arm Wonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think for me, it's a great way to say thanks, but also it's an opportunity for me to give back, to help them, give somebody the opportunities that I've had, you know, with the skiing, the adaptive sports and so on. And the list is endless what they can do for people. And it's...
Are they all, is the team all...
So everyone is an amputee.
Right.
Or paralysed.
Wow.
Wow. So... And they've all at one point been in the military.
Wow.
Some, I think a couple of members are still in or transitioning out. But again, it just hammers on the whole thing of ability, not disability.
Yes.
It's something that I use a lot with my hashtags on my platforms. But I'm a big advocate for ability, not disability. You know, you see somebody that's visually disabled, and straight away you're on the bandwagon of, oh, what can't they do? And it's like, no. And this is anything. Everyone's like you say about the negative voice and stuff, and it's, you might have a million reasons of why you can't or shouldn't do something, or can't do something. all you need is the one reason why you should, why you can, and that's all you need, isn't it? Really,
that's all you need.
And so I think we're just really showing people that just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you can't do something. I mean,
it's not just something
anything.
freaking awesome.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be hard.
amazing. Yeah, your ass is going to be in bits.
Yeah,
but it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be 3,000 miles of amazing.
3,000. What are the stats? It's 3,080 miles.
80 miles. Let's not forget the 80 because that's going to be painful.
Let's round it up to 100.
Let's just go up and not down.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, exactly.
3,080 miles, 175,000 feet of vertical climbing.
Wow.
3 mountain ranges.
Oh,
so it's
your legs are going to be like pythons, pistons by the end of it.
Or pythons.
Let's just go with pythons.
Yeah, well, we've got what them words that you came up with earlier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can listen back to this and write them down.
Exactly.
Send them to Collins and Oxford Dictionary. Yeah. 3 mountains. So it's the Sierra Nevada mountains, the Rockies, and the Appalachians. Then we've got 4 of America's biggest rivers. Wow. We're going through Monument Valley, Great Plains. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be one of those things that when you get to the end and then you look back and where you've come, it's going to be like, that was amazing.
It was a pivotal moment in life. Yeah. 100%.
8 are cyclists, and there's a team of support crew of, I think it's 15, I think.
When's this happening? When is this?
June
2000.
June this year.
June this year. Gosh.
Yeah.
And so you're already training.
Yeah, we're all selected and we're training. Actually, we've got a training camp next weekend.
Wow.
So
wow, mate.
It's going to be great, and it's. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not apprehensive because I'm not thinking about finishing it. I'm thinking about getting there, and I think that's. Do you know, I've been guilty of this, where I've thought about finishing it and then realised how big it is, and I've gone, I can't do this. And what was it? I had that moment where I went, no, I'm going to break it down. So training camp next weekend, then I've got a training camp the weekend, which is a simulation exercise, and then I've got Mallorca for a week. And then we're going for another training camp, and then we're flying out to. But I'm not thinking about that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not thinking about getting to the end. If anything, I'm looking forward to the adventure, and I think that's what you've got to do.
You do. So I've got someone. I've read a book by someone who circumnavigated the world, cycled the world, and he said if he'd have sat down at any one moment and thought, oh my gosh, I'm circumnavigating the world. This is crazy shit. Like, what am I doing? He would have gone home straight away. What he did to himself, he said exactly what you're saying, which is he broke it down into 4-hour chunks. So he said, one day I might only just do 4 hours, and then I'm done. I'm done for the day. If I feel good, I'll go for 4 hours. I'll stop. I'll have an hour's rest. I'll have some food, some drink, and I'll go for another 4 hours. If I'm feeling really good, I'll go for another 4 hours. So I'll stop after 8 hours, I'll have an hour off, I'll drink, a rest, and I'll go for another 4 hours. So I actually might do 12 hours on a bike. Some days I might do 4 hours, but I'll always do one chunk of work. I'm not thinking about circumnavigating, or I'm not even thinking about getting from one side of the country to the next. But if you and he ended up doing it, he circumnavigated the world on a bike in 4-hour blocks. Because exactly to your point, Dan, he broke it down into the day-to-day, hour-to-hour, manageable chunks. He didn't think about the whole thing, which completely overwhelmed him. Now, if you do that, you can achieve anything, absolutely anything. But to another point you made, it's about around advice and self-care and positive mental health. I'm very much of your camp. Break it down into realistic steps. Yeah. What does that mean right now for me? Well, actually, it might just mean you need to get out of the house and go for a coffee with a mate, and actually just stop being on your own for so long. Just go, even just one person, or just around some family. Do something which involves being out of yourself and being out of your own head, and start to just step by step make good decisions by being around positive people and getting a positive community.
I think that's an important thing as well, like being around you. You become a product of your surroundings.
Yeah, I think I said that. I said that to you. No, yeah, go on.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but yes, yeah.
But you are a product of your surroundings, and certainly we live in the age of social media. Like
Yes.
every single person that has a mobile phone is on social media in some aspect.
Yes.
I mean, there's many platforms, and it's it's in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, people are more interactive with, what's in their hand as opposed to actual FaceTime. I'm a prime example of it. I'm always on my phone, but I use my social media, my Instagram account, for work essentially. It's my own PR.
Yeah.
But I'm digressing. But if you follow negative people
Yeah.
on social media, you're going to become a negative person.
Yeah.
If you surround yourself with a group of negative people, and outside in the real world, you're going to become a negative person. I read a thing a while ago. Find five positive people that you identify with, and you will naturally end up walking their path.
Yeah.
And it's that. So
100%. No, listen, 100%. So I agree. I think actually, I think don't compare. This is a Jordan Peterson-ism. He's a clinical psychologist. Don't compare yourself to those around you. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
yeah,
And you're right. The power of comparison is the thief of joy. So
I'm a massive believer in that.
absolutely.
Any
And
comparison
is a thief of joy.
is a thief of joy.
And so, and what these platforms are doing a lot of the time, 90% of the time, it's comparing you to other people, to other people's caricatured lives, not even real lives. They're the fake lives that people are putting forward. And it's A, not real, but B, it's not a fair comparison.
No.
It's and so actually compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who other people are today. They're not even those people, to be honest. But you're right. The comparison is a massive thief of joy. And I also agree with your use of social media. Unless you're using it a professional commodity, I just don't use it anymore, because I refuse to engage on a personal level with other people's not with other people's good news, but actually with the caricatured, polished life which I know they're not really living.
Yeah.
And would rather actually a healthy dose of reality, because through being on the receiving end of this, I gain access into people's real lives every day.
Yeah.
When the bullshit's down, when people
well,
have got nothing to, people have got no filter. They can't hide because they're either A, B, or C. They've got so much stuff going on because they've called for our help. Actually, I want reality. I don't want this polished, coutured life. So you're right. Using social media for professional purposes, definitely. Using it to compare and contrast, because most of it's subconscious, not even conscious comparison.
Yeah.
And it subconsciously steals your joy. And so you're right. Just coming away from the social media thing, getting positive people around you, I think is just absolutely where it's at. Absolutely where it's at. And actually being around these 8 people in America going through trials and tribulations together.
I mean, there's going to be ups and downs.
There will be literally ups and downs, but there will be but there will be mental ups and downs as well.
Yeah, I mean the team. I mean that's just 8 cyclists.
Yeah,
you've got this support group as well who are doing probably a harder job than the cyclists, because all I've got to do, and the other 7 of us, go to sleep, get up, get on a bike, ride, get off, go back to sleep or eat or whatever they're doing. The guys in the support crew, they've got the mental, the mental challenge of staying awake, of making sure we're on the right track, making sure that the everyone's all right. And my job's relatively easy. All right, fair enough. Cycling up a hill or a mountain is going to be, it's going to have challenges and hard bits in it. But really, once I get to the top of that thing and that hill, that mountain, or whatever, and carry on going, I just got to keep pedaling. The guys sat behind, reading the maps, making sure we're sticking to the rules, and so on. And do you know what I mean? And it's like the cycling part of it it's not that hard, in the grand scheme of things, with the support crew. But then they've got their own challenges to deal with. Not only that, they're all amputees and all paralysed as well in some, in some capacity. So it's, I think as a cyclist doing the Race Across America, it's going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like trying to be all bravado about it, but realistically, in the grand scheme of things, I'm just getting up and riding the bike.
Yeah. Yeah, every day.
Do you know what I mean? Every
yeah.
day for I think 6-7 days.
Yeah.
So
You'll have a couple of pythons at the end of it.
Couple of pythons,
Python legs.
Yeah.
As they're coming alone. Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, you'll be not only fit as a fiddle, you'll have a story to tell at the end of it as well, or a couple of stories probably, which would be.
I'd love to write a book one day.
You should do. You should write.
I know what it's called, didn't you already?
What's it going to be called? Python legs. What's it going to be called?
Crikey. Yeah. These snakes give birth to live young.
Easy.
No, I'm going to call it Living Extraordinarily Normally.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Dan Richards.
That's my me manifesto.
Yes. Yes. Like it.
I started writing it once. I got 8 pages in and got bored, and I thought, if I ever do this, someone will write it for me. So.
Listen, we'll collaborate. We'll collaborate on your book in the future, because I'd quite like to read that book, actually. I would like to read that. And I'd also like to listen to a podcast by you. So not that I'm coercing you or forcing you into this, but you are going to do a podcast, because you would be awesome, my friend.
Thank you.
You would be awesome at a podcast.
You never know what happens.
You never do. No, you never do. Listen, Dan Richards, you've been a legend.
Thank you so much.
An absolute legend. And it's just been a pleasure walking through life with you, actually, mate. Because it's not just been a moment. It's not just been here and now. It has been the past few years, and just watching your life and things unfold and how you've tackled things, mate, has just really brought life to me. So thank you, mate.
Thanks for having me. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for saving my life. Yeah.
Listen, anytime. I would always, do that, mate. You just put so much joy to me, mate. So yeah, you're an absolute legend.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, guys, and we'll check you next time on the Restore podcast. Oh,
we're done.
Oh, that was good. That was a oneer, mate. That was a oneer. We didn't even need to take a second shot.